Welcome everyone to this webinar. This webinar is hosted by the Humanitarian Leadership Academy. Thank you so much for joining us today. The title of this webinar is The Shift in the Middle East and Northern Africa Region, Perspectives on Localization. So thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you will find this webinar very beneficial. Next slide, please. So this webinar is one in many series for the title The Shift. So we will be also hosting many webinars under this title as well. So today's webinar is done in partnership with different organizations who are with us today to represent their own ideas and own perspective on localization. So today we have with us Alawn Foundation for Development, which is from Yemen. We have our colleague Harith from this organization. We have also HelpAge International with our colleague Mazen. We have also Hope Revival organization with our colleague Mustafa from Syria. And also today we have Suleiman, who will represent the NIR network. So I will be your host today. My name is Bdour Ghousheh, and I work as a regional lead for the Humanitarian Leadership Academy for the Middle East and Northern Africa region. So basically, we cover different countries in the region, starting from Turkey, Syria, Palestine, Iraq, Lebanon, Egypt, Yemen, and also now we are working as well in Libya. Next slide, please. So today, panels will be with us today. So I will hand over to my colleagues to introduce themselves. So we'll start with my colleague Harith. Harith, if you can please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bdour. Hi everyone. This is Harith Mubarak, speaking from Yemen. I am a partnership and international relations specialist at Alawn Foundation for Development. I also education cluster focal point here in Mukalla Sub-Hub. Thrilled to be here with you today, and thank you for the invitation to the opportunity.
Thank you, Harith. Mazen.
Morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is Mazen. I'm the Capacity Strengthening Advisor with HelpAge, based in the UK, and focusing on localization in the MENA, particularly on Northwest Syria context. Thanks.
Thank you, Mazen. Mustafa.
Hello, everyone. This is Mustafa Alokoud. I am the Executive Director of Hope Revival Organization based in Turkey.
Thank you, Mustafa. Suleiman.
Hello, everyone. I'm hoping I was trying to work out my video. My name is Suleiman Abdullahi. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya, and I work with NIR as an innovative financing advisor. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Suleiman. Thanks so much. Thank you, our panels. Next slide. So just to go through the agenda for today. First of all, we are going through the introduction, which we are already doing right now. Then we will go through a reminder of the localization global commitment with HelpAge International. Then we are going to focus more on the MENA regional view with reference to the NIR framework on innovation finance mechanism. Then we are going to hear two perspectives from two national organizations. One from Alawn Foundation on localization of a humanitarian work in Yemen, the successes and challenges. And the other one is from Hope Revival, which will focus on the Syrian organizations in Turkey, the localization challenges. And at the end, we will have enough time for a question and answer and discussion. And I hope you will participate effectively in this webinar. Next slide, please. So just before we move on, I would like just to mention some of the housekeeping for us today. So throughout the webinar, if you have any question, please feel free to type them in the question and answer tab for discussions at the end. So if you look at the bottom of the webinar, like your screen, you will see there is a Q&A section. Please do type your question in this section. We will try to answer these questions for you at the end of this webinar. as much as we can. If we don't have time, but we will do our best to answer all of the questions that we get. And always please try to keep this question on the topic, just not to move to other topics, because our topic today is mostly around localization. And if you like to turn on captions, including, translation caption in your language, you can see also at the bottom of your screen, there is the icon called More. You click on More, you will see Show Caption. You can click on Show Caption, and then you can select your language, whether you want to listen in Arabic, in Turkish, in any language that you prefer. And also we have with us today two interpretation who will support us in translating into Arabic today. So if you like to listen to this webinar in Arabic, also you can see this icon that is on the screen. It's the interpretation. You can click on it and you can choose Arabic. So you can listen to this webinar in Arabic as well. So I hope that this is clear to everyone. If you have any challenges, just ask in the chat box and our colleagues will give you some support in that. Okay, so let's move to the next part. And I can also see that some of you are also introducing themselves. So feel free to write your name, your organization, your location also in the chat box. It will be good also to get an idea about who we are today. So before we dig into this webinar, we would like to hear from you, from your own context and from your own experience. If I ask you, how do you describe localization in one word, from your own experience? How would you describe it? So I will put this link in the chat box. This link is the Menti link, which you can use to fill in the word that represents the localization, or simply you can scan on the code from your mobile and you type into it exactly what is localization to you. I will share my screen to see your answers. Please try to use the link. Okay, so I will share my screen. Let's start to see what did you write. Okay, share screen. Okay. So let's see what we have. Okay, we have some words coming up, but let's wait a little bit to have more responses. Remember, you can use the link in the chat box, or you can scan the code on the screen. So I will give it more time just to make sure that more people are sharing your own answers. Okay. So I can see many, amazing words coming on. Okay, so I will wait till we have at least 15 responses and then we can move on. Okay, I can see that we have locally led, and we have also decolonization. We have the word empowered. I can see we have ownership. We have short distance. We have also process. We have equity. That's right. We have power. I like the word power. We have also refugees, maybe for organizations that are dealing with refugees. We have decision making. This is very important, I think. It's very great word as well. Ownership, it's really very strong word coming up from here as well. Yeah, I can see very, impressive word coming out. Let's wait if we have more. If we don't have more, then we can move on. I will check the chat box because I think I saw some answers in the chat box. I saw also someone saying other things. Okay, I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for your answers. I will stop sharing my screen now. And it will be over to you, Esther, just to share your screen. Thank you so much. So thank you so much, everyone, for the words that you mentioned. Actually, throughout this webinar today, we will talk more about these buzzwords, because I saw a very amazing buzzword coming on. So we will discuss these through our panels today in details. But before we move on, I would like just to explain to you what is the Humanitarian Leadership Academy for people who are new with this organization. So the Humanitarian Leadership Academy is part of Save the Children movement. We are a sector-facing team that we focus a lot on strengthening the capabilities of the communities, of the organizations, and the individual. Our purpose is to empower the individuals and the organization to be able to respond to crises in a more comprehensive and agile manner through providing them with the skills and the attitude and the knowledge that will enable them to respond better and better. So next slide, please. So for the Humanitarian Leadership Academy, what we do exactly, we work a lot with the local partners, and we work with them to improve their own capacities through identifying their training needs. So we work with them hand in hand and try to identify what are the training needs. And based on these training needs, we start to provide some capacity strengthening initiatives that will work on empowering the local and the national organization and improve their capacities, both on the individual level as well as on the institutional level. Also, with the HLA, our role is to act as a convening space for all the local organization to share together what is working well in terms of localization, what are the best practices, what are the challenges that they are facing. So exactly like what we are doing with this webinar, we try always to have this space for all the local and national organization to network and to discuss together what are the ways forward in terms of localization. So that's from the HLA perspective. Now I will move to next slide with my colleague Mazen from HelpAge. Over to you, Mazen.
Yes, thanks so much, Bdour. Hi, everyone. This is Mazen, Strengthening Advisor with HelpAge. I'm here to tell you an overview about, or a kind reminder about what's localization before my other three colleagues will take us in a journey about some success stories in their context. So next slide, please. Why local leadership? So there is always that question. INGOs and UN agencies always trying to jump in a country in order to respond, whether for an earthquake, whether it is for a flood. They are doing some sort of good equality programs. So why do we need local leadership if we are doing that great job? Now, as it's important to notice that local actors always have access to areas that cannot be reached by INGOs and UN agencies. I remember in northwest Syria, besieged areas in rural Damascus, only local organizations could manage to deliver aid in these areas. Local organizations also are from the communities themselves, so they understand the culture, the norms, traditions of the communities that they are serving because they are part of it. The most important is that local actors also support a strong civil society that works toward recovery, reconstruction, and development. INGOs usually, next slide, please. INGOs usually travel to a country whenever there is an emergency, try to do the interventions needed, and then when their job is done, they leave the country. Whereas local organizations' job is to ensure that there is a strong civil society after that response to allow it to do recovery, reconstruction, development, and build it in a better way. And then at the end, we need to have local ownership from the community themselves. So without having that intermediate, which is local actors, how we could ensure that there is ownership for what we are doing, and then at the end, ensuring the sustainability of the services. Next slide, please. Okay, so we could do partnering between INGOs and UN agencies. It's not a big deal. Now, the thing is that there is always criticism here and there, and it's not new. It has been there for decades, with the way of INGOs and UN agencies usually partner with local organizations. And next slide, please. These criticisms could be because some of these UN agencies and INGOs look at those local organizations as a way to implement activities. That's it. So it's more subcontracting and not real partnering. It could be seen that, unfortunately, they are holding the power more, and they are able to share some of this power with the local communities less. In addition to that, we could see that INGOs and UN agencies sometimes look at the capacities of local partners in arrogance, undermine these capacities and the abilities of what they could do, compared with the massive experience of those INGOs and UN agencies around the globe. And then at the end, being seen as a tool to implement Western policies, or let's say Northern policies for some countries, depending upon where part from world you are living in. Because of this criticism, there were, let's say, activities or revolution activities against the way that UN agencies and INGOs are holding this power. So for some, it might be called shifting the power to local communities, and we have seen Shifting the Power Manifesto for Change a couple of years ago. For others, it might be just about framing the relationship between INGOs, UN agencies, and local organizations. So it is more the principles of partnership that were developed by the Global Humanitarian Overview in 2007. Or for others, it is not only shifting the power, because we are not asking for that power, it is decolonizing the whole system. And then we have seen also a movement for decolonization and anti-racism as well in the last couple of years as well. In general, we could call it locally led, or as it is known, localization. The next slide, please. There is no Arabic translation for the localization, correct one, but usually what we use is التمكين المحلي, القيادة المحلية, التوطين, etc., etc. So it is hard to translate a word as well, but we try always to translate the concept itself. So allow me to share some definitions for the concept from some of the international agencies. So next slide, please. So according to ODI, localization is the process of shifting ownership and decision-making power from international to local responders. The Grand Bargain defined localization as to increasing international investment in the capacity, delivery, and leadership of local responders. There is additional definitions as well I could share from OECD. Localization means recognizing, respecting, strengthening the leadership by local authorities and the capacity of local civil society. START Network, also one of the biggest networks globally, have also their definition on localization, such as local national actors are at the center and are the primary determinants of how resources are invested. EGVA, since we have my colleague Iman here with us, so EGVA also defines localization as a process through which a diverse range of humanitarian actors are attempting, each in their own way, to ensure local and national actors are better engaged. So at the end, they are all focusing on the same thing, which is locally led interventions. Next slide, please. So let's have an idea, what are the global commitments for localization, so that in our context, if we want to go into that debate, ask our partner, if we are a local organization, or if we are a national staff of an INGO or UN agency, and we want to question our senior management in the country office, if they are doing great job in the localization or not. So the first thing to understand is that this is not a new term. This is not a new concept. It was there for years and years, but maybe after the Humanitarian Summit in 2006, it gained its fashion as we could see it right now as a trend. So during the World Humanitarian Summit in 2016, there was a commitment signed by the majority of the funding sources, as well as of the agencies that implement the activities. So 80% of the humanitarian contributions donation, as well as 76% of aid receiving agencies. So you can see how much powerful these agencies that have signed the Grand Bargain are. So in total, there were 63 entities, 25 country, 22 NGO, 12 UN agency, 2 Red Cross movements, IFRC and ICRC, as well as other intergovernmental organizations. You could name the INGO, and then you could check whether they have signed this Grand Bargain or not, and then you could question if they are doing a great job or not on that. Next slide, please. So Grand Bargain is not about localization only. There is other commitments in the Grand Bargain. Originally, when it was signed in 2016, there were 10 work streams or commitments, and then they were decreased to 9. And it was for 4 years until of 2020. But then later on, there were 2 extensions, one for 2 years and the other one, which is recently for 3 years until the end of 2026. I will highlight just one of these commitments, which is referred or to, which is linked directly to localization, which is more support and funding tools to local and national responders. So this is the main commitment for localization under the Grand Bargain. Now let's break down this commitment into several points to understand it well. Next slide, please. Sorry, next slide. Yeah. So if we want to break down that commitment of localization on the Grand Bargain, which the majority of the INGOs, UN agencies, and donors have signed, you could see it could be broken down into 5 main subcommitments. First one, which is multi-year funding to local and national responders. So we have here that donors are providing multi-year funding, but they are providing it to INGOs and UN agencies. And unfortunately, the majority of them are not downstreaming this to their local partners. So they are cutting this into slices, and they are providing the sub-agreements to their local partners into tiny little pieces, either annually, sometimes semi-annually, etc., which is not effective for the local organizations when they are planning for long-term or strategic interventions. The second thing is that to remove barriers that limit donors and INGOs from partnering with local actors. After 6 years from signing the Grand Bargain, we could see right now some efforts by USAID, ECO, sometimes other donors that allowing local partners, local NGOs, to partner directly and receive funding directly without having intermediates. But the majority of the institutional donors are still having these barriers that preventing them from this. Number 3, national coordination mechanism allow as much as possible the engagement of local actors there, such as, for example, a cluster to be co-hosted by a local organization, etc. Number 4, 25% of humanitarian funding is channeled to local organization. Still, we are far beyond that, and I will leave my colleagues from NEAR to talk about it later on. The last thing is about the country-based pool funding, how we can ensure that the funding tools increase and improve assistance delivered by local and national responders. So this is the Grand Bargain. This is the breakdown for the Grand Bargain. How we could measure it, there is various ways for that. And one of them is the fantastic NEAR localization performance framework that my colleague from NEAR will talk about. Over to you.
Thank you, Mazen. Thank you. Now over to Suleiman from NEAR Network.
Thank you very much, Mazen. Thank you, Bdour. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'm just recovering from a very small cold, but I'll try and move on very quickly. Mazen laid out a really incredible foundation for the conversation that we are going to have. For those of you that may not be familiar with who we are, maybe I can start with that in the next slide. NEAR stands for the Network for Empowered Aid Response. We are a movement of Global South, local and national civil society institutions from more than 30 countries in the Global South. NEAR's identity and vision really is synonymous with what we're discussing today, which is operationalizing, advocating for, and truly seeing a reality, a world where local communities have the resources and agency to address the challenges that impact them. And to a lot of people, that is the kind of final destination for what true localization would look like. And so to achieve this, we work on innovative financing, we work on advocacy and influencing, but also in the spirit of the session that we're having today, we spend also a lot of time on peer-to-peer knowledge sharing and capacity transfer. So we're very, very happy again to be here, and I'm happy to speak on behalf of NEAR, but also recognizing that I have other colleagues on the call who'll be happy to answer any questions that I'm not able to answer. Next, please. So just to pick up from where Mazen left, I think it's necessary to start putting some building blocks into when we define localization and local actors. You'll have come across a lot of debate that then starts in terms of who do we identify as a local actor? Do we identify the local country office of an international organization as being a local actor, even if it's registered in that country, even if it has a country director who is a local national of that country? As part of our work, we've tried to define what local actors would be. Number one, of course, is having that presence in locations before, during, and after a crisis. And so, as Mazen said, not necessarily parachuting in after an emergency has happened. Secondly, being accountable to local laws and authorities. One of the dangers of, or the criticisms of the international aid sector is that often we've sidelined local governments, local authorities. And so that element of accountability to local laws, local customs authorities, and communities is really, really necessary. And so accountability to communities is really, really crucial in terms of identifying, or thinking through how we define a local actor. And then crucially, making sure that, the decision-making sits with, individuals who are nationals of that country. And so to build on this, NEAR has a localization policy note, which you can find on our website. And so in that policy note, if you go to the next slide, we identify or try to define localization from the perspective of our constituency. What's really crucial to understand is, first of all, it's a process. And so it's a process of transformation, meaning that there's a requirement to change the way we support, the way we stand in solidarity, how we activate, how we design, how we fund and deliver assistance. And so we see localization as a solution, because ultimately what we're trying to do is we want to place communities in the local response systems that support them to have the resources and the agency to address the challenges that impact them. We find ourselves in a sector where we sometimes forget that the first safety net of a community is not an organization that comes from outside that community, that often communities often turn to their neighbor first. And so supporting these local response systems is a really, really crucial ingredient for localization. And because I work on innovative financing, now and then I'll try to come up with a formula, a mathematical formula. So if you want to look at it mathematically, localization can be defined as direct relationships and direct resources. That's ultimately what leads us to localization. Next, please. What's really crucial, and again, thank you so much, Mazen, for laying the foundation for this and setting the stage, is a lot of times the conversation on localization becomes a really political, really, really subjective conversation, and sometimes even emotive, because it comes with an existential reality in which, as I said earlier in the definition, it's a process of changing. It's a process of changing mindsets, changing traditions and ways of working. And so with such a subject, there's a tendency to revert to that kind of, spending a lot of time thinking through the definition, spending a lot of time thinking through the political implications of what localization is. And so we found that even though there are commitments, there's really a necessity that, you cannot do something unless you're able to measure it. And so if we truly want to advance on the commitments that we've made, it's really necessary to come up with an objective, evidence-based way of measuring what localization is and what the journey to localization looks like. And so as part of this, inspired by previous work that has been done by other colleagues in the sector, NEAR came up with the localization performance measurement framework. What's really important to know about it is, number one, it's modular, meaning that it comes with different segments, and so you can pick and choose what really matters for you. Secondly, it's adaptable. And thirdly, it has different utility for different stakeholders. And so you could be a funder, you could be an international organization, you could be a researcher, and it will still have utility for you. But ultimately, localization cannot progress unless we have a system of accountability, and we cannot have a system of accountability unless we have a way of measuring that we all commonly understand. And so again, this is a document that's on the NEAR website that you're able to download. We've seen a lot of interest on this document. We average about 100, 150 downloads each month. And so if you go to the next screen, you'll see what it looks like in brief, but in the interest of time, I of course won't go into detail on it, but primarily it has 6 key indicators, one on partnership, one on funding, on capacity, coordination and complementarity, on policy, and lastly on participation. And so when you drill down localization from that kind of high level bird's eye view definition, ultimately, when we come down to what really matters, we believe that these are the 6 key things that we need to be looking at trying to measure. A lot of the work that we do, or a lot of the work that I do, has been on funding, which I'll be speaking about in just a second. And so when you look at that, you will see that we're speaking about, number one, the quantity of funding. There's a commitment of 25% since that was made in 2016. 7 years later, we are nowhere close to that. We're about 2 to 3%, again, depending on who you ask. But regardless, the consensus is that we're far, far away from that. Quality of funding also matters, and more importantly, access to direct funding, or direct as possible funding. And one of the trends that we've seen with the localization journey has been this idea of who gets to handle risk. So even in a lot of the good cases where we see transfer of resources to local actors, we're also seeing a wholesale transfer of risk onto the same local actors, which creates an undue burden. And that can also be partly used to explain why we're not seeing the kind of progress that we would like to see on the commitments. Next, please. Within the sector and the work that we do within our constituency, we see ourselves occupying 3 distinct roles. One is as a facilitator. NEAR is not an implementing organization as a network. However, we work very hard to facilitate processes, facilitate conversations, facilitate transactions that enable these localization commitments to move forward. We provide technical assistance primarily to our members and our Global South constituency, but also to other stakeholders in the system, international organizations, donors, and others. And also, as a result of doing this work, we see a responsibility in connecting movements that are working towards the same objectives. So in the next section of the presentation, I'll speak about some of the innovative financing work that we've been doing. A realization, next please, is that 7 years after this initial commitments on the Grand Bargain, we find that a lot of the reasons why we're not seeing the commitments progressing is that there are systemic and structural constraints that stand in the way of direct resourcing of local actors. And so in recognition of that, we developed a financing strategy, which again, you can also read in detail on the website. But the ambition on this financing strategy is to build practical, progressive, and authentic solutions. They have to be practical, meaning they have to work for the local actors. Progressive, meaning we cannot remain, doing the same things and expecting different results. And authentic, meaning that they have to be accepted as representing the true aspirations of the local actors. And so in order to see this, we've identified 4 priority areas. The one that I'll spend a little bit of time speaking about is this need to shift to an investment culture. In our sector, we speak a lot about funding, and we regard funding as transactional. A lot of colleagues here on this call, we've got, I think, over 60 participants. You'll agree with me that, we often come across examples of funding that is basically, we will give you X amount of money to deliver Y amount of outcomes. But if we truly want to change the business model of this sector, which is what localization is trying to do, then we also have to recognize that the requirements for resources go beyond implementing an activity or a set of activities, that we need to invest in the resilience of local actors. We need to look at organizational capacity needs. We need to look at, treating these local actors or the local actors as people that will need to remain in these communities before, during, and after a crisis. And therefore, there's an implication that we cannot just think about a transactional relationship anymore. We have to shift to an investment culture. And the minute we start thinking about investment culture, it really then changes our perspective on what we identify to be impact, what we identify to be prioritization, and what that process looks like. But also one of the priority areas is about designing user-centered financing solutions. The grant-making models that exist today in the sector, that have existed for 70 years, that this sector has been around, are not working. This is partly why localization, or this is largely why the localization momentum is picking up. And therefore, what is the alternative? The alternative is a bottom-up, demand-driven financing solution, meaning that it's one in which communities and local actors sit at the center of how needs are prioritized, how needs are funded, who gets to make a decision, and also who gets to identify and determine that funding has had an impact. And so as part of this work, we have an initiative at MENA, which we call the Localized Financing Mechanism Initiative. And so with that, we've been working with local actors across the Global South in countries such as Somalia and Syria, more recently in Nepal, to design local financing mechanisms or shared financing mechanisms. And so maybe I'll spend about 2 minutes speaking about 2 examples that are maybe more relevant to the MENA region. The next, if we could go next, please. One is
Suleiman, just if you can a little bit slow down, because we the translator. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Bdour. I do tend to speak very fast. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it is me too. Thank you.
Sorry to the interpreters. So I'll move a little bit slower. So in Somalia, working with communities and local actors in a journey that started in 2020, we ended up developing what's called the Ghousheh Fund in Somalia. Ghousheh is a Somali word, and it means community. And so this is a mechanism that works with communities directly. The goal of this mechanism is to provide direct, unrestricted, and flexible funding in a grant-making process that's very, very simple. One of the pillars of this mechanism is in-kind procurement, recognizing that in a lot of these communities, the local actors sometimes often are not even formal incorporated organizations. And so should that be a requirement for you to step up and, assist your community? Do you need a license in order to be able to step in and make an impact in your community? Obviously, the answer is no. And therefore, how do we then build a compliant mechanism that's able to support efforts like this, grassroots efforts like this, while still meeting, the compliance requirements of the international donor system? And so the in-kind procurement solution came up as a modality. This is a hand drawing that was done by an artist when we were trying to explain how this mechanism works. Ultimately, as you can see from that, it's built on 3 pillars. Communities verify the initiatives that they would like this funding mechanism to work on. The original motivation for this came up from the fact that in Somalia, a country that has seen at least $1 billion of humanitarian aid since the civil war started in 1991, communities still felt removed from this process, and that they felt that they had no agency, they had no role in the decision making in the process. And so the Ghousheh Fund is about trying to reinvigorate that community leadership, that communal decision making, but also place prominence on the fact that it's not aid organizations that form the most critical part of a safety net for communities. It's actually the community itself. And so putting that decision making back to where it needs to be and reinvigorating community leadership is so crucial. And so in a context like Somalia, again, often when we speak about funding, the alarm bells go off and we start thinking about it's so risky, to give resources to organizations that may not be incorporated. And so this is an opportunity and an endeavor to rewrite this risk narrative and change perceptions of communities by giving direct funding and then working with the community itself to evaluate the impact. The next example is a more recent example. If we can go next, after the devastating earthquake earlier this year in Syria and Turkey, working with the Syrian Networks League, which is an association of 180 members in 4 countries bordering Syria, we worked with the partners to come up with the Syria-Turkey Solidarity Fund. This is a locally rooted, agile, and responsive mechanism that was designed to provide really quick grants to communities that were affected by the earthquake. Some of the key features of this mechanism was, one, the rapid disbursement nature. The fact that as soon as local organizations submitted a 1-page grant proposal, they would receive a decision within 72 hours of receiving this proposal. This grant mechanism is managed by the Syrian Networks League. It's supported by NIA. And you can see a practical example of how local expertise is leveraged and how the presence, as you said earlier, Mazen, in terms of access, demonstrating that local actors have the access to reach, where many other actors are not able to reach. One of the unique elements of this, and this is an area that NIA has done a lot of work in, is also being able to diversify sources of funding beyond bilateral donors. So looking at an increasingly prominent role for philanthropic foundations. In the case of Syria, this work was supported by foundations, including the Hilton Foundation, the Global Fund for Community Foundations, and also our colleagues at Global Giving. So recognizing that we don't have a lot of time, I'll stop there. Very, very happy to take in any questions, but also just a reminder that a lot of these resources are on our website, and we have a MENA representative, Wajdan Jarrah, who's also on the call, who you can reach out after. Thank you very much, Bdour.
Thank you so much, Suleiman. Thank you. For everyone, just remember, if you have any question, type it in the question and answer box. Thank you so much. So now we will move to our colleague Harith from Alawn Foundation.
Yeah. Thank you, Bdour. Hi, everyone. Glad to be here with you. Thank you, Suleiman. Thank you, Mazen, for your great input. This is Harith speaking from Alawn Foundation from Yemen, based in Mukalla city. First of all, let me express my genuine thanks to HLA for this invitation, and let us be part of this great event and raise the voice of national NGO in Yemen. So please let's go to a shared journey and about the localization of humanitarian work in Yemen, success and challenges. And there we will illustrate and find out what we believe that is success, and also the challenges that we are facing. So please join me to a short journey to Queen of Sheba land. So here we go. Next slide, please. Okay, so the localization, as my colleagues have related how it began and the groundwork and based on etc. So in Yemen, actually, it all started in June 2021. The process of the localization by leading, by co-sharing some clusters and whole. Sorry. And here I would also want to express our great thanks for Save the Children office here in Yemen for believing in launching the initiative of localization by proceeding a co-sharing process, which started in 2021. And since there, we in our own foundation were co-sharing the education cluster and Mukalla sub-hub. And it didn't stop there, actually, not only on the education cluster, but also this pilot also expanded to watch cluster as well as a stack and child protection cluster, so which really was an amazing to see local and national NGOs co-sharing education and many clusters. So here in our own foundation, we are co-sharing education cluster, and since then we have witnessed an increase of the membership of the national NGOs, also the understanding of the framework of the education cluster, how we implement the activities of education, what is the framework of the education cluster, the humanitarian response plan, Yemen humanitarian response plan, what is the indicators of the education cluster, and etc. So in this, we can really say that we have managed to enhance the understanding, the comprehensive understanding of the national NGOs in education sector, for instance. The humanitarian response as well has been increased. We can find and we can see that a lot of the humanitarian national NGO has been responding to the humanitarian response. And by the way, recently, last month in Yemen, we faced a cyclone, deep cyclone, and we can say that almost 95% of the response NGOs, they were national NGOs. And this proves that the national NGOs, they have the full capacity and they have the willing and the improving to respond to any and whenever the humanitarian response is needed. In addition, the NGOs partners also has increased, and the last allocation for YHF, Yemen Humanitarian Fund, in education cluster, 100% of all the received grants, they were national NGOs, and also this also improved that that the national NGOs, they have the full capacity to receive the funds from whether OCHA, YHF, or any other UN and international donors. Next slide, please. This is regarding the success, but still we are facing a lot of challenges. To be frank with you, one of the challenges for us in education cluster subhub that this subhub covers 51% of the space and the area of Republic of Yemen, which put a lot of challenges and difficulties for the national NGO to respond and to act in this huge and enormous space landscape. But they are improving, and also when it comes to the training and unique training, there is a lack of training. And I hope after this webinar, with the framework, with the knowledge of the grand bargain and localization terms, that the international NGO will allocate more and more fund for the training for the national NGOs. And also maybe one of the challenges that we are facing when it comes to the recovery plan, we still, as a national NGO, we are not aware, or still there's some missing information regarding how to be ready for the recovery plan. We are changing from humanitarian phase to recovery plan or to reconstruction. This is the main challenges that we are facing, but we totally believe that we can cover, we can respond, we believe that the national NGOs, they have all the potential, they are entitled to be an key active partner in every country. But within all these challenges covered, I think that we can reach our goal. Next slide, please, Bdour. In addition to what my colleagues have mentioned, Suleiman and Mazen, actually we have in our own foundation and education cluster that localization, it's not only about grants or rights. It's always about rights and responsibility. So also the national NGOs, they have to do their best to improve themselves, to show that they are able to receive grants and to take a role and lead, for instance, clusters, etc. So we think and we believe that it is responsibilities and it is right. With these two values, we can achieve our goals and the localization process. With this, I come with the end to the perspective of localization from Yemen. I hope that I raised and highlighted the process of humanitarian localization in Yemen, and still we are in the process of improving, and I hope that we can come over all the challenges we're facing here in Yemen. Thank you. This was Harith speaking from Yemen, and hope if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to write it down. I will be more than glad to answer. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Harith, so much. Thank you. If you have any question for Harith, please type it in the question and answer. Now over to Mustafa. Welcome, Mustafa.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mazen. Thank you, Harith, and thank you, Suleiman, for the foundation of the great concept of localization. I will start on let's say, a part of the localization with the diaspora organization. You know, the diaspora organization play a crucial role in fostering the partnership between different communities, culture, and countries. These organizations provide platform for people of the same origin, culture, background to connect, share experience, and collaborate on various initiatives. In our context, if we start from the organization, the diaspora organization here in Turkey, next slide, please. It's very important to mention that about the Syrian diaspora organization in Turkey. All of them, they are refugee-led. They are play a vital role in supporting the humanitarian need of the Syrian people. They are working to meet the immediate needs of Syrian refugees and IDPs and build a better future for the Syrian. And this is by this strategic partnership between the diaspora organization and the stakeholders, such the NGOs, the business, can further enhance the impact of the effectiveness. The Syrian diaspora localization, next please. Syrian diaspora organization in Turkey seek to shift the ownership, leadership, and implementation of humanitarian and development program to local actors in northwest Syria, who have a deep understanding of needs of the people they are serving and well positioned to deliver effective and sustainable assistance. As you know, in our context now, we are Syria on the northwest of Syria. We have a diaspora organization based in Turkey, and we have our colleagues working inside Syria. So we believe that we are the link between the INGOs, between the donors, between the global humanitarian workers to our colleagues in northwest of Syria. So we are playing a linkage role between them. Next slide, please. The Syrian refugee-led diaspora organization have a several unique advantage. They have a good understanding or deep understanding of the needs of the Syrian people, strong networks of contacts and relation inside Syria, able to operate in areas that are inaccessible to international humanitarian actors. They are accountable to their communities, to their Syrian people. They are building on the localization, and they are developing the localization in northwest of Syria. When we mention about the localization for the diaspora, our main role is to focus on our colleagues in northwest of Syria more than our organization, that diaspora here in Turkey. Next slide, please. When we consider the third of the Syrian diaspora, they have the effectiveness response because they have that rapid and less expensive response. If we focus on the enhanced impact, they are bridging a unique skills, experience, and access to peer of the challenge facing their home country. At the end, the colleagues who are responding from here, from Turkey to Syria, they are focused about their cause. Supporting innovation by collaboration with diaspora and traditional development and the humanitarian actors can tap into new ideas and approaches to addressing complex challenges. Improved accountability, diaspora can help to ensure that development and the humanitarian programs are accountable to communities they serve. And this is the part that we should always build on when we're talking about the diaspora role. Next slide, please. We will focus about the challenges that facing the diaspora organization. The previous one, please. The next, it should be challenges. Yeah, okay. This is another one. It's the key challenges that facing the Syrian diaspora organization. Sometimes we started from the equal partnership, share funds, trust, and responsibilities. We know the challenges that facing any organization or any context during the response to localization, starting from this. So we will start from the most critical challenges that facing the diaspora organization is the local constraint. At the end, we are hosted by another countries, and maybe we have some legal constraint, and working on the Syrian context, you can understand the legal aspects, the financial aspects. The financial limitation and resources constraint, and this is another part because we have some compliance difficulties, particularly because we are working across the language and cultural barrier. At the end, we are on the host communities, and we should understand this culture and dealing with this culture to respond to our response. A sustainable and capacity building, at the end, we are starting from scratch when we are moving to new countries, and we start a new or engage with the new civil society that we are trying to work with. Coordination and collaboration. At the end, till now, we are working at the coordination, for example, now here in Turkey, and the response inside Syria. So maybe we have some challenges regarding the area-based response. Till now, we are focused about the whole level from Turkey to Syria. So we are trying now, and many of the humanitarian actors pushing to the local or area-based coordination, and this is need a lot of capacity from the UN agencies and from the NGOs. And we should consider that the psychosocial and mental health support. This part is not because we are always focused on MHVSS, but we should consider that inadequate resources to provide comprehensive psychosocial support to traumatized Syrian refugee population. Challenges addressing a long-term psychosocial impact of displacement, conflict, and loss within the refugee community. At the end, we are coming from traumatized communities, and we should address all these challenges. Next slide, please. We will talk about one of the example about the diaspora organization is Hope Revival organization. Hope Revival is diaspora, refugee-led humanitarian organization providing humanitarian relief to Syrians affected by ongoing conflict. HRO has a team experience on GBV, child protection, legal, and Syria. All these experience built it here in Turkey, not inside Syria, and we reflected later to Syria. And this is one of the challenges, because when we consider the localization, the capacity should coming from the field more than the head office. And this is and the head office in country and the response in another country, you can consider always the transfer knowledge how it's difficult. And with million thanks to Humanitarian Leadership Academy, always trying to tackle the border and support the colleagues through their online services. We should consider that the HRO has own responsibilities like the community resilience through provision the capacity building to women-led organization in northwest of Syria, and this is one of the responsibilities as HRO, and we consider under the community resilience. Next slide, please. Yeah. As a Hope Revival organization, always we should focus on the difficulties that we are trying to tackle. But unfortunately, it's not easy to deal with. Difficulties in meeting compliance requirement. We have two countries now as a compliance team. They have our own policies, the host country, and the donor policies. Meanwhile, we should consider that the policies or the regulation inside Syria. So we have 4 pillars to respond through dealing with the compliance. Considering that the language barrier too. And this is a difficulties when we are dealing with our colleagues inside Syria. Difficulties in capacity strengthening due to limited resources to invest in capacity building to develop the skills, knowledge, and institutional capacity. Till now, the institutional capacity is here in Turkey. We didn't invest well inside Syria to ensure the continuation of this program. And the third difficulty is the transfer knowledge effectively. And this is what humanitarian leadership always support us due to the geographic distance between the HRO members and their home communities, in addition to cultural and languages barrier. Always we are dealing about transfer this knowledge, but we need mostly focus on translated to be accepted within the community. Because the language barrier is not about language, sometimes it's about terminologies and about cultural barrier and so on. Next slide, please. Thank you a lot to join us on this presentation, and I hope that reflects some of the experience of the diaspora organization within the Syria. Thank you all. Over.
Thank you, Mustafa. Thank you so much. Thank you, our panelists, for your presentations. I think they were very comprehensive. Now, for our audience, please feel free to type any question or anything you'd like to highlight. I have some questions here in the question and answer tab, and also I see something also in the chat box. So I will start by the questions in the Q and answer tab. So I can see that Noor, she sent, I think it's a comment more than a question, but Noor, do correct me if I'm wrong. So I see that Noor saying, Dear Suleiman, near grassroots level has a most important role, but we request they need to give space. So I think it's a comment, Noor, or is it a question? Okay. Okay, if it's a question, just if you can elaborate in the chat box. Thank you so much. We have also someone asking if we can share the slides. Sure, and we will also share the recording with you after this webinar. Also, we have a question from someone, anonymous attendee, and I think I will direct this question to Mazen or Suleiman. So this question says that I believe that donor approaches to overheads for local and national partners should be more equitable and transparent. Local partners play a crucial role in humanitarian and development work, and they should be adequately compensated for their contributions. Currently, many donors do not provide full cost recovery for local partners, which can lead to financial hardship and hinder their ability to deliver effective programming. Why donors and INGOs are still refusing to share the overheads with local partners? So, Mazen, if you can, answer this one or give us your perspective on this question.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, Bdour, and I will add some thoughts, and then I will give the floor to my colleague Suleiman as well. So just to highlight that there is an INGO who is trying to measure localization and provide some suggestions as well for 5 countries, which is concern, and we have here with us in the attendees Mark Johnson, who is leading that research. So I was putting Mark on part of it, which is related to Northwest Syria. We have asked this question to some donors as well related to the ICR, indirect cost ratio, or overhead cost. And it was not surprising to know the answer. It's not limited as well for Northwest Syria. It could be as well general to other contexts. Thing is that, as you know, within the IASC, there is a recommendation for provision of overhead costs to local and national partners that was published last year. But the language used is more encouraging, more than pushing or forcing, or it's just recommendation. And there is no percentage as well that is mentioned over there, so it is kept open. So as you can see, it is a shy document, if you allow me to refer it like this. And when asking donors as well, they also have the same response, which is they prefer that this need to be done by their partners, INGOs and UN agencies, and not by them. They recommend, they encourage, but not force, not push, not anything beyond encouraging. And they don't track it as well. So at the end, have no idea whether this was successful or not. For local organizations, this is really, really important, as mentioned from the colleague who have asked this question. Organizations usually use the overhead cost to cover the expenses that are not listed or not budgeted within the budget lines available in the grant. They could use it to pay, for example, for translation of legal documents, to hire an audit, to do organizational capacity development activities, development for a strategy plan, registration in a country, pay for the rent for their for their HQ office, etc., etc. Some UN agencies, in my previous experience, have used to give ICR to their local partners, but they forced those local organizations to use or to cover from these ICR some of the expenses that usually are support expenses. So the colleagues here with us that are from the finance and grants background understand that we have various categories of budgeting. We have the project direct activities, we have the support activities for the project, and then we have the overhead costs. So some of the UN agencies, unfortunately, are forcing their local partners to cover some of the project support activities from the ICR, and they are categorizing all of this as ICR within the 7% that they are providing, which is completely false information that they are trying to share either within the grand bargain or with their HQs. Over to you, Suleiman.
Thank you, Mazen. I think Suleiman has a power cut, so I'm not sure if he can join us. Whenever he comes back, we can also ask him. I was talking on mute. Okay, so I think Suleiman will join us after the power cut. So I can see that we have also another question from Jamal. Jamal is saying, thank you for the webinar. Is there a toolkit for localization and minimum standards? Do we have something like a toolkit or like a minimum standards for localization? If any one of the panelists have any idea about it, like a toolkit or a guidance for people who wants to work on localization?
Yeah, Bdour, if I can jump in for Yemen context, yesterday they have officially approved the strategy of the localization. So they are working in, the final version of it. When it will be ready, we can, share with you, and from you, you can share it with all the participants. Over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Harith. Mazen?
Yes, in the presentation, Suleiman covered the near localization framework. There is other toolkits as well from Piango. They have their own, and others as well. Yeah, there is a list we could share with you, Bdour, and then you could forward to the participants.
Perfect. Thank you, Mazen. Yes, and the framework, the localization performance framework that also mentioned by Suleiman. Thank you. Now I see also a question from Yusuf. Yusuf saying that it seems that all speakers talked about shifting power, decision making from donors, INGO to local national NGOs. All other local stakeholders are left behind, forgotten. Would you please clarify if I misunderstood you speakers? So I don't know if any of the speakers can answer Yusuf's question. So are we only focusing on the national NGOs and just not taking into consideration the other local stakeholders when we are talking about localization? What do you think? Thank you, Mazen. I see you.
Yeah, if no one from the colleagues wants to answer this, as well as there is two other questions from Yusuf linked to that. So according to the definition again from IASC on the parties, when they define local actors, that include local NGOs, local authorities, and local community as well. So they are all within the same category. Maybe me and my colleagues here from Yemen and Somalia, in our presentations, we tried to emphasize more on local NGOs as a local actor and forgetting about the other actors as well. That's because usually in the war context, the humanitarian actors are usually sensitive with who they are work with, especially if we have two governments in Yemen, for example, or if we have a multiple de facto authority in Syria, so which one we have to work with. So yeah, but in more sustainable context, those that face natural hazards but not war, we highly encourage to engage with local civil society organizations, local institutes, public institutes, local communities, local universities. All should be included in the localization discussion and not discriminating any of those. But usually during war, it is a sensitive thing when we are engaging with a party of war and that the other. I hope that I've answered this. If any one of the colleagues want to add as well.
Thank you, Mazen.
Yeah, Bdour, if I can add, we are talking here about the humanitarian. So it's we all know that when it comes to humanitarians, that there's a dysfunction of the government and the official authorities in some way or another. So when we shift to, for instance, the recovery or reconstruction, then the role of the other stakeholders will be empowered step by step, and then until we reach the normal situation where the authority and the government will take the main role, and the humanitarian or the local NGOs will be less. So this is very, very, very realistic. Over to you, Bdour.
Thank you so much, Harith. And we also see Wajdan also typed in the chat box that localization in aid sector deals with local national NGOs, registered ones. This includes also local government as well. Thank you so much. Also, we have another question is also we still talk about capacity strengthening of local national NGO. What about other local players? Do not they need capacity strengthening? Also, local national NGOs in many countries like Syria have been receiving capacity development for more than a decade. When do you think they do not need capacity strengthening? I just will forward this question to you, Mustafa. If you can give us your insight about this point. I'm not sure that Mustafa can hear us. I'm not sure. Okay. So the question.
I'm struggling with the internet. I'm so sorry. I will not open the camera. Let me read the question clearly to us. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Yes, actually, in our context, there is many alternative solutions for funding. One of the success stories that mentioned by Suleiman, the Solidarity Fund. The Solidarity Fund started as an idea by our colleagues in NIR, and we are proud to mention that my organization is a member of NIR network, and they have a rapid decision making, and they are trying to expand this fund to reach for donors. So we have some effort on this part. It's collaborative effort, and they have a steering committee and advisory board who seeking for partners. Yes, we have alternative source of funding, actually, and this is one of the issues that when the humanitarian community seeking for is the challenging the institutional funding. I think consider the foundation, consider the CSR, and seeking for another alternative solution and sustainable solution, particularly when we are trying to challenge the issues like the overhead, sometimes the multi-year funding, and many other concepts that know it. Sometimes the donor, they have some issues on this, particularly on context like Syria. It's complex. We cannot consider it always as a humanitarian response, and we cannot consider on development or early recovery. So we have challenges on this part, but actually, yes, we have some success stories. And now one of the alternative of the pooled fund that led by UN agencies. Now we have a IFNS aid fund for Syria. It's a new pooled fund led by Adam Smith. Yeah, by Adam Smith. So we have some solution for this.
Thank you so much, Mustafa. Also, I will answer two questions that we received. Is one about also like when we are providing capacity strengthening, why we are always providing them to the local organizations, and we are not, for example, targeting other local actors. I think this is a very good point. Whenever there is capacity strengthening, we should not only focus on the national organization. You know, national organization will always need the capacity strengthening, especially for the organization that are left behind sometimes, because usually we see the same organization taking the same capacity strengthening offers. Some of the national organizations, they are left behind, so it will be always there, but we need to upscale our interventions to target also the less privileged organization who does not receive a lot of capacity strengthening offers. Also, it's very important to target, I think this is a very point also, to target other local actors like government officials, maybe academics, maybe not only the local organization, but also other stakeholders. Now for this, there is a question also that all the speakers, they came from local and international NGOs. What about other local actors? Why did not invite people from government, from local authorities, from local councils? So I think this is a very good point, Yusuf, because Yusuf asked this question. So as you know, this is the first webinar that we are doing this. So as we mentioned before, there will be more webinars. So this is one in a series. So in the next webinars and in the future, we will make sure that we also listen to different stakeholders, even people from the government, from authorities, also from different councils. So this is also a very good point. Thank you, Mustafa, for raising this. I think I saw a question in the chat box. I don't want to ignore this question because it's very important. It's from Akram. I found it. So Akram says it's not just about training costs. No, I think we answered this one, but I saw another one for Akram. Which one? Sorry, from Ismail. Ismail saying, how can we balance localization and international partners policy with the local, I just went away, with the local partners need. So this is a question. How can we balance localization and international partners policy with the local partners need? So maybe Harith, if you can answer this one from your own perspective.
Bdour. Yeah, we can do so. By trying to provide a large and extend the framework of the localization. Try to make the NGOs more supportive for this value and for the rights of their localization, and try to put it on the table on a constant way, and try also to offer some some solutions, some options. So with this, I think that in the end we will eventually we can come to the to this goal, to achieve it. But I think it needs some time to be achieved.
Thank you, Harith. Also, we have another comment, just to see it from in my experience with Middle East civic society, mostly national level civil society organizations are much capacitated. The local civil society grassroots or district regional governorate based in different locations are in direct need of capacity strengthening support, and should be more targeted along with local authorities and local diverse actors. This is a very good point. Thank you so much for mentioning it for us also. Thank you so much. Okay. So I think these are the questions that we received so far, and I am aware that we may need to wrap up soon. So thank you so much for your questions and for having this discussion. I hope that it was very beneficial. As I mentioned before, we will be sharing with you the slides. We will be sharing with you the recording. And for the frameworks and the toolkits that we mentioned, also we will be sending this to you based on your request. So if there is no other question, we can move on. Last question: do you have any partner organization they are working in Pakistan? So if I request about that. We have some stakeholders who are working in Pakistan. We have for the Humanitarian Leadership Academy, we have the Asia Regional Center. So if you like, we can also link you to them, and they can direct you with the partners there in Pakistan. Okay, so thank you so much for attending this webinar. Next slide, please, Esther. So just before we wrap up, I would like just to inform you about having this hybrid event that is happening in the UK on the February 20th. It's a hybrid event where you can attend either face-to-face if you can, or online. You can register online. This conference, this event is very very nice event because it has so many interesting sessions. You can find interesting sessions about the humanitarian finance, about many topics. I can't even list them, but I think it will make a lot of interest in many of you. So I would advise you to look up for the information about this humanitarian event. And if you are interested, just to register on the link. We will be also sending you this link with the presentation. So please do try to register. You can attend it online, or if you can attend it face-to-face, it will be also great. So I hope that you will be able to attend this conference. So just to make sure that we have the contacts today, we have the email of Alawn Foundation, who were with us today, HelpAge and Hope Revival and Network. So whenever you would like to reach out to any of the panels, please feel free. And if you have any question, if you require any information, please feel free to reach out to them. So I think we reached the end of this webinar. Thank you so much for our panelists today. Thank you so much, Mazen. Thank you so much, Mustafa, Harith, Suleiman, for joining us today and sharing your own perspective, your own experience on localization. I think it was very beneficial. And thank you, our audience, for having you today, for your active participation. And I hope that this is the first one in many coming soon. Thank you so much.